truth, logic, common sense, that gut feeling, and yes, even a little psychoanalysis, as we are once again together, you and I, to discuss Chad and Lori Daybell. Well, for a hump day, KJ don't feel like humping none. You know what I mean? It's the middle of the week. I wish it was the weekend, but I am here to talk to you about what we discussed before, and that is Chad Daybell's notice of alibi. You know, Lori, she gave her notice of alibi, and the state of Idaho, they had to file a motion to compel because, number one, she didn't do shit according to her alibi. And on top of it all, there's no dates or times, so nobody can figure out one way or the other what the hell this woman's talking about. I was in my apartment, and my children were at Alex's, and they were murdered over there, or at least that must have been what had happened. I'm not sitting here in my notice of alibi saying I knew my children were being murdered at Alex's, but this is what I think has happened. What a cop-out. This woman is a mother. She should know where her children are, and from the very moment that they never came back, that's when she became a conspirator to commit murder, if in fact her alibi was correct. It's my view that I wouldn't be surprised if she wasn't over there herself, coaxing the spirit out of her own damn children. It's just aggravating as hell. But let's go over this private notice of alibi of Chad Daybell. You see, Lori has come out. You can publicly see her little 3 or 4 lines in there of her alibi, but you can't see nothing of Chad's. Wonder why that is. Wonder why John Pryor, if his client, is so damn innocent, then put it out there. Comes now John Pryor, counsel for Chad Guy Daybell, and hereby gives notice to this court that on January the 3rd, y'all, okay? January the 3rd, the defendant, through his counsel, submitted to the prosecuting attorney by Odyssey Service his notice of alibi. An Odyssey Service is a private service. Why Lori's attorney didn't do it this way, I just really haven't figured that out yet. What do y'all think? Put it in the comments. But what's interesting about it is Lori's alibi came out 2 days later. And you can be sure that because these are joint cases, that even though John Pryor sent the state privately through this Odyssey Service, this notice of alibi by Chad Daybell, Archie gets a copy as well. So 2 days after Chad's alibi is given to the state, Archie comes out publicly in the court portal with Lori's crappy ass excuse. Give me a break. Then it talks about further that on January 25th of 2023, the defendant Chin there, through his counsel, submitted by Odyssey Service his disclosure of expert witness report as it relates to the defendant's forensic pathologist. And the forensic pathologist that John Pryor is speaking of is the one that's going to be going up here at this hearing on the 9th, that's going to tell the judge and anyone that'll listen that this DNA evidence, he doesn't have enough time to really do the testing that he needs to do, and the judge is going to have to make a decision. John Pryor says, because my expert cannot do this properly in the amount of time up till trial, we need to move this trial back. Well, John Pryor can kiss my country ass. He's had 2 damn years. And if anybody wants to say, well, KJ, the state just gave them those reports here at the beginning of January, folks, what all can this man say? Really? You think about the DNA reports. Is there any, other than saying, I did testing and this isn't Chad Daybell's DNA? Y'all, the bottom line is this. Whatever those 2 DNA reports were, they had Chad Daybell's DNA on it, or John Pryor wouldn't even mess with it. You see where we're going with this? Further, the defense submitted a list of the witnesses through current discovery they intend to call in this matter through Odyssey service. So John Pryor's letting everyone know through notice of service, he's letting the court know that he has a witness list. Now somebody tell me, and he's not talking about just the expert there. He's done singled that out. He's saying there's more witnesses. And, I'm thinking about it, and I'm thinking, well, the state has the burden of proof, and it's not very often that defense attorneys will get a bunch of witnesses together to rebut something, because that opens the door for the state to get more evidence out, really, if you think about it. I guess really the question is who the hell is going to go in there outside of expert witnesses on DNA, is going to go in there and say Chad Daybell is innocent? Oh, yeah, we know. Emma, Garth, they could go in there and try to give their dad's alibi. And, that's probably where it's going to go, y'all. Because Tammy, hell, he murdered her ass. She can't take up for him, can she? He murdered her. So, throughout this case, for the 2 years this channel's been open, time and time again, we would go through evidence that was released publicly or court documents or police interviews. And as it went along and the adjudication process continued forward, we would start filling in those pieces, and when we would see something originally that would come out, whether it was Chandler Dump or whatever, we would take it at face value and we would start to break it down to see how it fit into everything. And then later on, we could go back. For instance, if we went back and watched Melanie Gibbs' last police interview and compared it to her East Idaho News extravaganza, along with comparisons of her testimony in Chad's preliminary hearing, you see a lot of different things. And so the reason I bring this up is I'm not here to beat a dead horse. Chad Daybell has got an alibi, whatever it is. I am assuming that he's going to put this all off on Lori and Alex. He sure as hell ain't going to implicate himself. And if the mother of those children could absolutely come out in her alibi and say, I didn't know before the kids were murdered, I didn't know after the kids were murdered, and I didn't do the murder themselves, I wasn't the principal, God only knows what Chad Daybell's going to say. The question really is does he have witnesses of his whereabouts? And whoever those witnesses are they credible, or could they be just a little biased? Daddy's little girl, Emma, whatever. Y'all know where I'm going with this. But we know Lori's alibi. It was it's on public record. And we know that there are no dates and times listed in it. And where was Chad at specifically? And can he prove where he was at during the times Tylee and JJ were murdered? If he had something solid, right? If there's some way to prove that he was not there when those children were murdered, that doesn't get him off of anything. He freaking conspired with them. And according to Idaho law, whether he actually murdered them with his hands or whether he conspired, he is a damn murderer. How does he explain? Let's just go through this. I really want to go through this again, because this shows you the pathetic nature of Chad Daybell. How does he explain burning limb debris and shooting a raccoon? And it just so happens, y'all, that Tylee is chopped up, burned up in the pet cemetery on the same day. He sends Tammy the text message within 11 minutes of Alex's phone being on Chad's property for over 2 hours in the daytime. How could Chad not know Alex was there for 2 damn hours? What, he's going to let Alex go in his backyard and fiddle around and not know what the hell's going on? And you know and I know there's no way that this situation, what they did to her body, could have been done out in the open, except perhaps the body parts on the fire. I mean, maybe they could have concealed that as they burned it. I mean, nobody wants to talk about it, but I will. And we know that Alex was there 2 hours and Tylee's body was there. Whether Chad shot her, whether she was already dead, I'm not sure, y'all. But the bottom line is she was there for 2.5 hours where they were dismembering her and putting her on a fire. How can Chad Daybell say that he had nothing to do with this? How long did it take, y'all? How long did it take to dig JJ's grave, get the white stones, the paneling that was in the grave that they found others that matched it inside Chad Daybell's sheds there? And if Alex Cox was only there 17 minutes, how could that grave and all of that be done in 17 minutes? Alex came over there and put that body in that grave, and Chad covered it up. Pure and simple. Covered it up. If Chad could tell his parents, his children, and church members that he was married to Lori, then why not tell the police the day of the welfare check? Why is Lori his wife? Just one of his friend Alex's sisters. Why is that? And why couldn't Lori tell police she was married to Chad? How is it that anyone can see that and think that Chad Daybell is saying, I had nothing to do with any of this, and oh, by the way, we lied to police about us getting married? And, when he told his children that he was married, they didn't know about Tylee and JJ. When he told church members that he was married to this fabulous woman who had a lot of money, she was an empty nester. She was, she didn't have children. His parents. Why would Chad do that if he had no involvement? What possible alibi could Chad Daybell give? Put it in the comments. I want to hear it. Because if I could think of everything, I would. All I've got in front of me is everything that we've all either been over or we've chewed on for some time. What is his explanation for why the kids were there before they were murdered and they were in Lori's life and all of that? And then after September, they just wasn't there anymore. They were gone forever. And it wasn't like nobody was asking, Chad, where are the kids? Where are the kids? It's not that Chad didn't know that the FBI put out that thing about the missing kids. It's not about him not knowing at all, because he did know Tylee and JJ. So, obviously, the only thing that I can really do is go back through it. When I think of Chad Daybell's alibi and what it could possibly say, we all make the general blanket statement, or at least most of us, say that Chad's going to say Lori and Alex did this and he didn't know nothing about it. Because he sure can't take up for Lori and say, well, Lori and I just figured that Alex took the kids somewhere safe and it was Alex's duty to make sure the kids were off in a bunker somewhere because we had to reimagine ourselves into our new existence. We were the king and queen of the 144,000, and we were gathering everybody up. We were gatherers, and we had to do all this stuff, and the kids would have just gotten in the way of the mission, and Alex did that. We trusted Alex, right? But this all started back in 2015. You see, Chad Daybell did not start talking about his wife dying when he met Lori. He'd been talking about it for years. And I just, I have to re-emphasize this because I know I've said it before. Who in the hell does that? I mean, if somebody came to me and said, hey, my spouse, I had a vision or a dream or whatever, or a revelation that my spouse was going to die and everything. It would freaking creep me out. And, Julie Rose, she went on several news things and talked about it, how he talked about it all the time. And other people heard Chad talk about this. So Chad, years before Lori, he was already not happy in his marriage. He just wasn't willing to take it a step further and take it another step further until he became a serial killer. We know that on 9/26 of 18, right? That's September 26 of 18, that Chad and Lori were supposedly have met at this conference. And this is all stuff that the state really needs to bring out in the trial. They met, and if Chad Daybell did not, it's all about this, the defense is going to say, well, Chad Daybell, there's evidence here, and we're not refuting that Chad Daybell had an adulterous affair with Lori. But just because he had an adulterous affair doesn't make him a murderer. The bottom line is that someone is going to have to explain why Chad was telling Lori that they were married in a different life, right? This right here shows a juror that Chad already began the grooming, the stroking. And don't get me wrong, I'm not putting this all off on Chad. But if Chad wants to have an alibi that he didn't know shit, he needs to know that his actions in it were absolutely pivotal to the mindset of the murdering son of a bitch that he is. October 30th of 2018. Remember, y'all, this is the end of 18. This is even before, way before Charles was murdered, the kids were murdered, Brandon was shot at, Tammy dead. In 2018, Brandon is dark, says Gilbert Police Department. And that was from Chad. Chad's the one that labeled Brandon dark. Why would Chad Daybell do that? Why would he do that? Doesn't he want to see good things in people? Chad begins talking to Lori via email and phone and more and more and more. And we know that Chad goes to Lori and Charles's the weekend Charles was away. January of 2019, y'all, Lori starts sending videos of herself dancing at Chad's request. And you know what that proves? That proves that he's a horny piece of crap. But you play it out where Charles is sending him a message saying, hey, it's inappropriate to be looking at videos of my wife dancing. And I'm going to get in touch with your wife, Chad. You would think that at that moment, Chad would back off. Chad would go to Tammy and say, hey, I'm in love with Lori. Let's divorce. And then in the same month, January of 2019, Chad emails Lori the family history records that we all so well know, telling Lori that Charles has an evil spirit. It wasn't Lori that come up with this evil spirit bullshit, but she was ready to jump on that Johnson with Chad, regardless. She'd have believed any damn thing Chad Daybell told her at this point. By February, Charles files for divorce, and Chad Daybell knows good and damn well that Charles has filed for divorce. Why couldn't he? Why couldn't he just let it play out? If he just met this woman and he really didn't know anything that was going on, and yes, he did get an adulterous affair, but Lord have mercy, y'all. This man, no matter where you look, he's guilty as hell. February of 2019, Charles files for divorce, and by July, before he's murdered by Alex and Lori, Chad sends Lori the smutty novel. But that's after Charles's death. Also, he calls the funeral home and inquires about Charles's ashes, and he's not saying Charles. He's just trying to get a price range in there. Why? Why would Chad Daybell be involved in Lori's husband's funeral arrangements? Huh? I mean, let's look at that for a second. Why would Chad Daybell, why couldn't Lori call about it? Why wouldn't, I mean, that would seem if hey, she would have to deal with it, right? She sure as hell didn't keep herself from calling the insurance company to try to collect on his insurance. She wasn't shy about that. Then why would Chad have to do that? Why would Chad have to do that for her? Because she just was so sad. She was so sad that Charles tried to hurt Alex, and he had a spirit in him because, see, Chad told me that he had an evil spirit, so that all lined up. And because Chad told me that, and because it ended the way it did, and Alex had to protect me entirely, Chad, will you please call the funeral home and give them a fake name and some prices? Give me a freaking break. Why tell Lori that they were James and Elena? Well, we all know why, because he was a horny man. Okay, I mean, he's sick, y'all. He's so sick. You know and I know. When he's sitting there texting this little smutty novel out, he's probably pleasuring himself at the same time, if you know what I mean. Then, of course, Lori moves to Idaho, and Lori and Chad, they start up their relationship. They're walking around the track at BYU, and no one really knows Tammy at the time. And Melanie Gibb doesn't have a problem walking around there with them, watching them kiss and hold hands. It was almost like they just wanted to believe and be oblivious to the reality that Lori had children. Lori and Alex, especially, well, I believe Chad was involved, but if you really want to get down to the nitty gritty, Lori and Alex murdered Charles. That was in the background. I mean, how many men feel I don't give a damn how beautiful a woman is. I mean, if a man gets with a woman, she's married, he's married, and then her husband ends up shot and killed. I mean, does Chad Daybell not believe that at some point, if he'd have been honest about it, that at some point somebody would put two and two together, and when him and Lori, being the married couple that they were, that they would walk into a church service and there might be a few in there that go, yeah, his new wife, her brother shot and killed her husband. Why would Chad Daybell even want to get into all that? You know why? Because Chad Daybell is a psychopath. He's a sling blade, gimme some taters, Frankenstein, nasty ass man. It's just very interesting that September 8th, and y'all know what that day is, that when Tylee is murdered, whether it was after they got back from Yellowstone, whether it was overnight, however it happened, but on September 8th, Chad is increasing the light map on Tammy. With her, she's signed too, according to the indictment. And this really gets to me, and I don't know that I've actually brought this out before, but I've played it out in my head. When Tammy came home with the groceries and she's getting out of her vehicle on October 9th of 2019, and somebody in all black is there with a so-called paintball gun, and she goes in the house and tells Chad she has to call the police. Chad Daybell, his reaction? I mean, he didn't do anything. And the question is, was it Chad Daybell that called the police? It's highly doubtful. I bet Tammy just had to. She did, and I believe Chad, and hey, this is just theory. When the police came over there, he probably talked her off a ledge. He probably talked the police off the ledge, just as he talked the coroners or the people that came to attend Tammy's death there with the kids making the decision not to have an autopsy. Give me a break. His reaction to his wife being messed with, even if he believed that somebody was playing a prank on her. He didn't do anything. He didn't do nothing at all. He was too busy sticking his wiener in Lori, trying to find time to get away from his wife while she's going to work during the day. That gives him all the time in the world to lie through his damn teeth, especially on the day that Tylee was murdered and brought out there to chop up and burn, to tell Tammy, I'm going to BYU to write. Yeah, give me a break. Chad talks to Alex before and after the attempt on Brandon's life, but has no clue at all. He has no clue at all. It's a damn disgrace what Arizona has done when it comes to the Charles Vallow murder and the attempt on Brandon's life. I can't stress that enough. Because if any of that would have been taken serious, y'all, if any of it would have, perhaps, and I know we've been down this road, but I can't say it enough. If they would have held Lori and Alex just long enough to really investigate this, tell them, hey, you're a person of interest or whatever, perhaps the kids would still be alive. And what is Chad's explanation? I mean, because I know it's not going to be in his alibi of why he is helping Lori put in a seat, in a Jeep seat, in a tire in the storage unit, and how he's helping Lori later in the month of November wheel in those bicycles and things of the kids, where he slaps Lori on the ass. What is going on in his mens rea, y'all? What's going on in his mind at the time? Has Lori told Chad Daybell, hey, I got to put my kids' stuff in storage, and will you help me do this? It's just some things. The kids are off somewhere. Alex brought them somewhere. Or how about Alex isn't around, Chad. October the 2nd, I need you to help me put a seat and a Jeep tire in the storage because I can't do it myself, Chad. Give me a break. And Chad's talking to Alex before and after on burner phones. Yeah. In the indictment, look at the date of when Chad acquires a burner phone under the overt acts. And then Chad says, and this kind of just makes me want to slap the hell out of this man. He says that he tried, when he was on the secret recording with Melanie Gibb and Lori, he said, I tried to get Tammy to go to a doctor. I guarantee you, if Chad Daybell wanted Tammy to go to the doctor, she would have went. And besides that, why was it such a surprise to him when he found her dead after he'd been talking years of her dying? Give me a break. 2 weeks after Tammy's death, Chad and Lori marry. And that's, hey, y'all, there are people out in the world that jump into marriages and all this and that. But you got to look at everything in context. Chad told others Lori had no children. Chad told his parents that Lori was an empty nester. Chad didn't tell his children about Tylee and JJ. And of course, on November 26th of 2019, the welfare check. Why aren't you living with your new wife? Why aren't you living with her? Why don't you have Lori out there at your damn house? You know why? Because those children of Lori's was in the backyard and she didn't want to be out there. She knew they were there, but she didn't want to be out there. How in the hell could these two think that they could just take off to Hawaii, start going to church there, act like they were just totally different people, and just somehow the life back in Idaho is gone? And not to mention Lori and her trail of bullshit from Arizona all the way to Idaho. How in the hell did they think that stuff was just going to disappear? And no damn way the children were going to be forgotten. Lori and Chad are so absolutely pathetic. Why isn't Lori at your home, Chad? And why lie to police about knowing Lori? And why tell Melanie Gibb not to answer the phone when police call if you don't think anything's wrong? What, Lori's going to tell you, Chad, I got a welfare check, Chad, and I've got the kids off. Alex has put them somewhere safe, and I'm really, the police are bearing down on me. They're dark canes, Chad. You've been telling me all this stuff too, about Charles having dark spirits, Tylee having a dark spirit, and Viola, and Brandon, he was dark all the way back since July of 2019. Chad, why tell Melanie Gibb not to answer the phone when police call? because Chad Daybell was sitting right there with Lori trying to figure out what they were going to do at that time, what they were going to do about all of this. Chad cannot say he didn't know, that he didn't know about the children. So there's nothing in Chad's alibi that's ever going to say, I did not know that Lori Cox had children. So that one's off the table. Okay, then Chad knows that Lori has a special needs child and that she has a 16-year-old. Could Lori have said, well, Tylee's off at BYU, Chad, and JJ, I sent him back to K. Or Lori could have said, I sent Tylee and JJ off in a bunker and Alex helped me. Then why in the hell and how in the hell do those children's bodies end up on Chad Daybell's property? They had to keep them safe, don't you know? They had to keep them safe. Why won't Chad cooperate with the police? He knew all the way back in, November, after the welfare check? November, December. He knows the FBI is involved. He knows all of that. By January of 2020, y'all, law enforcement serves a search warrant at Chad's. Well, I'll tell you what. Chad was sitting at the kitchen table during that time, wasn't he? Oh, this was when there was all that snow on the ground. And they collected all this stuff indoors. They couldn't really check out in the yard. And I'm assuming that after January 2020, when the law enforcement people left, Chad probably told Lori, see, we've got a force field around this. No one's ever going to discover the kids or we would have been discovered. And then at the same time, Chad Daybell's, around the same time of this search warrant, after that and everything, and Chad knows law enforcement is looking at him, Matt Daybell pleads with Chad, and Matt Daybell is Chad's brother, to cooperate with the investigation. And so Chad knows that if his brother's asking him to do that, then Chad knows that his parents know about it. And Chad has to know that he told his parents that Lori was an empty nester. What, could Chad call his parents and say, hey, folks, I know I told you that, but it was really about Lori just wanting to, she didn't want anyone to know about things. So, she said that the kids were off in a camp somewhere or a bunker, and she really didn't want anyone to know about her. She was trying to change her identity because Kay Woodcock, of all people, Kay Woodcock just wanted to have a relationship with her grandchild. And Kay Woodcock bent over backwards, doing everything she could to plead and to acquiesce to Lori just so she could see JJ. By February of 2020, Lori is arrested and Chad doesn't cooperate. This would have been the time. What possible alibi during the murders does Chad Daybell have? And really, folks, his actions don't have to be just before the murders or during the murders, but his behavior after the murders. And it's just as crystal clear as it can possibly be. By March 2020, Lori is extradited to Idaho and Chad doesn't cooperate. He sits out in the audience while Kay and Larry's sitting on the front row and Lori struts her slutty ass into the courtroom. And he's sitting back there I'm assuming that in his mind, he must have been thinking, as long as they don't find those children's body, all we have to do is tell everybody, the kids are Lori. She's the one that's the full custody parent. The government's getting way too much overreach here. Lori doesn't want the kids around these people anymore, or whatever. But as long as the children's bodies weren't discovered, Chad had actually told Lori not to talk to law enforcement, according to Rob Wood, who was talking to Summer Shiflett, Lori's sister, right? And of course, we know about June the 9th. And let me tell you something. Of all the behaviors that Chad Daybell had, all the way through this, let me just say this. Just because Chad Daybell had an adulterous affair with Lori doesn't make him a murderer. What does make him a murderer is that he conspired by also whether Lori was, I mean, I'm not 100% sure who came up with the children needed to die. It would seem to me that Lori would be the one that would originally have to have that thought. Because think about it like this, y'all. If Chad would have came to Lori and said, your children have got to die, Lori. They've got to die. Lori could have told Chad, I don't see that. Her love for her children could have told Chad, no, it can't be true, Chad. I love my children and I don't see that. I've got to get that revelation myself, Chad. And you know what Chad would have done if she'd have said that? He would have been, oh, okay. He'd have been, okay, Lori, whatever. It was a plan. And should it really matter whether Chad planted that in Lori's mind or whether Lori planted it in Chad's and they just enveloped it and developed it until the murders took place? That's a real good question. Put it in the comments. Whose initial idea was it? Was it Lori's idea that the children should die? Or was it Chad's idea that the kids should die? August 3rd and 4th, we know of 2020 that Chad had his preliminary hearing. All this evidence, and Chad doesn't come clean. He doesn't try to talk to the state about any of this. During the whole time that Lori was arrested before the children's bodies, Chad Daybell, anytime during those months, he could have been talking to police. He could have got with his attorney. He could have said, hey, we need to sit down. I don't know what the hell's going on. That's not what he did. Instead, he's calling around, trying to get a concrete slab on his property to hide those children's bodies. At least one of them, anyway. Maybe he thought that Tylee's body was so disintegrated that no one would ever find her. But he was wrong. He was damn wrong. And then, of course, August 21st of 2020, Chad pleads not guilty to the initial concealment charges. So he pleads not guilty to the initial charges of alteration, destruction, and concealment of evidence. And as many of y'all remember, when they dismissed those charges, I went off the deep end. That, to me, should have stayed. There's no reason at all why they should not have kept those charges. There was ample evidence to show that Chad Daybell did these things. He was a grave digger. He was there within 11 minutes of Alex being there 2 hours. They're going to have other evidence, and it's my opinion, y'all. One of those DNA reports is going to show blood of Tylee's DNA along with Chad Daybell's DNA on it. And of course, the defense will say, well, that was Chad Daybell's shovel. Of course his DNA is going to be on it. We'll just have to wait and see, won't we? But then May of 2021, after those concealment charges were dismissed, the murder indictment on Chad came down, and Chad pleads not guilty. Y'all remember his nasty ass sitting at the table with those ugly ass hands saying not guilty, not guilty, not guilty, not guilty. What he should have done anytime before or right before having to do that at arraignment, he should have sat down and he should have explained himself. But y'all look at it like this. This is where it's relegated now. Chad Daybell, through John Pryor, has had a notice of alibi given to the state. Archie has a copy, and 2 days later, Archie files one for Lori. You gotta wonder how much alike those alibis are. If they are, they kind of line up, and I wouldn't put it past Archie and John Pryor to be being strategic about this, then it would look like they're trying to put this all off on Alex, which is a crock of shit because no juror in their right mind is going to say that a mother shouldn't have known these things, right? And by August, seeking the death penalty on Chad and Lori, September of 2021, Chad's children says their father was framed and Tammy died of asphyxiation. And that's what the children said, that's what they were told. And trust me, y'all, if the children went on that dang 48 hours or whatever it was and said the state told them that's what had happened, the state's not going to lie to them. They're just going to say that, and it's my view and I believe it's bared out. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm almost positive that by now the coroner's report is not released on Tammy Daybell, but they got it changed from natural causes to undetermined. Okay, so they didn't get it changed to homicide, but they got it changed to undetermined. And for many of y'all that get into the crime and everything, when they do that, that opens the door to explore murder charges, homicide. It's a little tougher road to go, but I'll tell you one damn thing, and this is a fact, Jack, and you can take it to the bank. Tammy Daybell's autopsy does not say natural causes on it anymore. It's been changed to undetermined. And they go from there, and they put the evidence together. May of 2022, the state seeks the death penalty for Lori. So you got August of 2021, the state says they're seeking the death penalty on Chad. And then by, May, and then by August 2021, May of 2022, Chad was, the state filed death penalty on him. Chad could have come clean. Chad has distanced himself from his queen. And because we see through the court hearings and how much that John Pryor has done this, starting out, carte blanche, really, talking about Lori as Vallow instead of Daybell, and the fact that John Pryor wouldn't bring Chad to any of the hearings. He was even willing to stipulate on at least one thing for the state just to keep his damn client out of the same courthouse with Lori. It had to happen sooner or later with them being co-defendants. But the bottom line is that Chad cannot say this. You ready? Chad cannot say this. He cannot say, I didn't know that Lori had children. I didn't know Lori's finances. I didn't know that Lori and Alex murdered Charles. I didn't get Lori and Alex believing Charles was possessed with an evil spirit. These are things we know can be proven. So Chad Daybell cannot say that he did not bring it up that Charles was an evil spirit. Chad Daybell cannot say, I didn't tell Lori we had been married in a different life, when that can be bared out. Chad cannot say, I did not rape Charles or Tylee Dark. Of course he did. I did not commit adultery on Tammy. He can't say that. I did not tell everyone Tammy was going to die. I did not tell a funeral home a fake name and a story so that I could find out something for my hussy damn queen. I did not help Lori with the children's belongings into the storage unit. He can't say that. I did not know Alex and Lori murdered the children. If Alex and Lori were the ones that actually were the principals, Chad Daybell damn well knew they'd been murdered. If Chad Daybell was the principal, then Chad Daybell, he better come up with something on his alibi for September 8th and 9th and the 22nd and 23rd, that he wasn't the one that actually murdered these children. Okay? We do know that the state has said that Chad actually murdered Tammy, but I'm just telling y'all, the bottom line is conspiracy to commit murder is the same as doing it. Chad Daybell cannot say I did not keep silent to law enforcement after I married Lori. I didn't lie to family and friends, church members about who Lori was. I didn't lie about her being an empty nester and that she didn't have kids. I didn't lie when I was in the backyard texting Tammy a bullshit story. I didn't lie, says Chad Daybell, that I shot a raccoon. I didn't lie that I burned limb debris. I didn't lie when I told Tammy on the text that I was going to write at BYU. I guarantee y'all's ass. when they look at the timing of that text message of him saying he's going to write at BYU, they're going to have cameras at BYU. They're not going to find Chad Daybell anywhere near there. You see, Chad Daybell was in the middle of helping Alex, whether it was through the murder or the concealment of those children. I didn't see that Alex was in my open backyard for 2 hours during the day. I didn't dig a grave for JJ, and I didn't provide stones and paneling. Alex did all of this, all of it, in 17 minutes, and he was at my house for 2 hours. Chad cannot say it had to be Lori and Alex who did all this. There's no way. Chad and Lori were more at the hip in these September, October, November, and on months. In fact, if you think about Lori, once her and Chad started to really get together after she come to Idaho and stuff, that's when all this bullshit started about Chad wanting to give Alex a blessing to get Alex to go on with Zulema. It was going to be Lori and Chad all the way. Alex was going to be zoned out, so to speak. And in my view, he either committed suicide or he was helped along, if you know what I mean. When he was, I just don't believe he died of natural causes. And, you know, what's interesting about it is that there's one thing I know for sure when it comes to Chad's alibi. He cannot, even if he went on the stand, if you took into totality everything he did throughout it all, that he could honestly say that he loved Tammy and his children. He couldn't have loved them. And come Valentine's Day, we're all going to go into what love was for Chad and Lori. I've got some really special things that's going to happen for all the Rays on here on my special on Valentine's Day live stream. You just wait and see. You know how I can get. He cannot say that he loved Lori, and he couldn't say that he loved those children, and he couldn't say, knowing that there is evidence that he knew Lori had children, that he wanted stepchildren. It's just as simple as that. What possible explanations for any of this could Chad Daybell give? We know Lori. I could do the same thing with her. The bottom line, in terms of her alibi, not knowing before and after, and she wasn't the principal. Well, if Chad Daybell wants to put that out there, he is shit out of luck. Just as Lori is shit out of luck. You know? If you've got the state of Idaho having to file a motion to compel because her alibi doesn't include times and dates, well, I'll tell you what, those alibis of Chad and Lori's, the state is going to take that information and they're going to test it in trial. You can be sure of it. And I mean, yeah, they can be general all they want. They can sit there and say, here's our alibi, but we're not going to tell you times and dates. All we're going to say is we didn't do shit about this and we don't know shit about this. Well, I'll tell you what, the state will fill in the blanks, don't you think? Tell me, share with me, share with OKJ. What is Chad's alibi? Share it with me. I just want to hear it because I know that we are all individuals. You are the only you're ever going to be. I can't think like you, and you can't think like me. We might have some things in common. But I'll tell you what, I rely on the Rays on here. We will get justice through understanding. We will see those pieces fall into place when they blow the hell out of Lori's alibi and Chad's alibi. They're going to blow it out of the water. You just wait and see. It's all going to unfold, and it's all going to work out. So with that said, I love you all, and keep on looking.